Today, on another Prepared American, I'm taking you deep into the Ural Mountains of Russia to unravel one of the most chilling and unexplained survival mysteries of all time, the Dyatlov Pass incident. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out on a multi-day expedition into the brutal cold. They never returned. What rescuers discovered weeks later was beyond terrifying. Bodies scattered, a tent slashed open from the inside, and bizarre injuries that still defy explanation. Was it a Yeti attack? A top secret military experiment gone wrong? Could they have encountered something not of this world? Or was it simply the brutal power of nature in one fatal mistake? Stick around to uncover the chilling possibilities in this episode of Survival Storytime, the Dyatlov Pass incident. On the night of February 1st, 1959, in the remote Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, 9 experienced hikers set up camp on the eastern slopes of, oh God, I'm going to have to pronounce things, Kholat Sakyul, a name that translates ominously to Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language. By morning, all 9 would be dead, their bodies scattered across the snow-covered landscape in a manner that defied easy explanation. More than 6 decades later, the Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in survival and outdoor history. A search team, dispatched when the hikers failed to return, discovered their tent partially collapsed and inexplicably cut open from the inside. Their belongings were still inside, suggesting that they had fled in a state of panic. Their bodies were eventually found at various distances from the tent, some nearly a mile away, dressed inadequately for the freezing temperatures. Even more disturbingly, some bore injuries resembling those from a high-impact car crash, yet with no external wounds. Others had strange burns, missing tongues, and signs of radiation exposure. No footprints other than their own were found in the area. Now we'll go into the theories. For those who enjoy a wilder explanation, the idea of a Yeti, an unknown hominid-like creature stalking and attacking the hikers, has long circulated. This theory gained traction due to a mysterious photograph recovered from one of the hikers' cameras, showing a dark humanoid figure in the snow. Additionally, the extreme injuries suffered by some of the victims could suggest an attack by a powerful predator. However, no conclusive evidence of such a creature has ever been found, making this more of a campfire tale than a scientific conclusion. Allegedly. Theory 2. UFOs or paranormal activity. The Soviet Union's strict control over information in the 1950s fueled speculation about unexplained lights seen in the sky on the night of the incident. Some believe the hikers may have witnessed a secret military experiment or a UFO encounter that ended in their demise. Supporters of this theory point to the strange burns on some of the bodies and traces of radiation found on their clothes. However, skeptics argue that the radiation levels were too low to suggest anything beyond natural background exposure, and the so-called fireballs in the sky could have been simple meteor activity. Theory number 3, the KGB or military involvement. Another chilling theory suggests that some of the hikers, possibly working as KGB informants, were caught up in a classified Soviet operation gone wrong. This theory is fueled by the presence of radiation on some victims and reports that certain bodies were found with injuries consistent with high-speed trauma. Some suggest that they may have accidentally stumbled upon a secret weapons experiment and were deliberately silenced by the government agents. Given the Soviet Union's history of secrecy, this remains a compelling angle for those who suspect foul play. And on to theory number 4. The theory we'll be focusing on today because it is the most plausible, but it is the most pertinent to what we do here on Another Prepared American, and that is the avalanche theory. One of the most scientifically accepted explanations suggests that a small, delayed slab avalanche forced the hikers to flee their tent in a panic. A sudden collapse of snow could have buried parts of their camp, prompting them to cut their way out and seek shelter in the forest. In their attempt to survive, some succumbed to hypothermia, while others may have suffered fatal injuries due to falling debris or a secondary collapse. However, skeptics argue that the slope was too gentle for a major avalanche and that searchers found no clear evidence of such an event. Okay, so we are I'd say in the dead of winter right now, it feels like it at least. I have the heater going. That's this ominous orange glow here. It's not just mood lighting. It's my heater keeping me warm out here. Um, this is going to go into the winter survival must-knows that we can gather from the Dyatlov Pass incident. It's windy out. The first tip for winter survival is layering. We use a 3-layer system whenever we're layering for the cold. We use a base layer, which is going to be a moisture wicking fabric. You don't want it to be cotton. You want something like, like when you think of like the Under Armours and stuff like that, things like that. Polypro, typically a poly blend of something to wick moisture away from your body. Then you have an insulating layer, which is made of wool or down or whatever you're going to use to keep heat in. So it's trapping heat in the body. And then your outer layer, which is your windproof, waterproof shell. That does not have to be a giant puffer jacket like this necessarily. It can be thin as long as it keeps out the wind and water, because that's what protects everything else inside from getting wet and cold. And then the most important thing inside, being wet and cold. Next on for winter tips, we're looking at fire starting in the snow. For starters, you want to carry multiple fire starting tools. So remember, the 2 is 1, 1 is none. You want waterproof matches, ferro rods, lighters, fire starting tinder as well, because snow can make gathering dry materials difficult, and it makes sense to have a small waterproof case or a container to keep all these things in. I just use a little Pelican case. It's no bigger than this, just a little guy. I have all of my fire starting stuff in one. I have it labeled as such, so I always have it in my hiking bag. And third is shelter against the elements. If in an emergency, a snow cave, tree wall shelter, or tarp setup can provide protection from the wind and cold. That's a huge benefit. Having shelter, staying out of the elements is a good way to stay dry as well. Because remember, we're trying to stay dry, stay warm. On with staying dry, you want to stay dry and avoid sweating. Wet clothing accelerates heat loss, so regulate exertion to prevent excess sweating. Work when you need to and rest when you can. So whenever we are working in the cold, it's very easy to forget you can sweat because it's so cold outside. But you need to remember your feet will sweat, your armpits will sweat, your groin will sweat. And if those things get cold, those things are your toes, they can get hypothermia the fastest because they're an extremity. But if your armpit and groin gets cold, that's whenever you start facing hypothermia, which leads us into point 5 of winter survival tips. Know the signs of hypothermia and frostbite. Shivering, confusion, slurred speech, and numb extremities mean you need warmth immediately. It means it is too late. It is starting to set in. Hypothermia is setting in. You need warmth. Some of the burns on the hikers from this incident were because they couldn't feel their hands and arms. And so they were holding their hands too close to the fire that they had started. And so they were burning their hands. They didn't even know it. That's one explanation. Or they were blown up by a secret military project. Who knows? Preparing for extended winter expeditions. The first tip we have for that is you need to plan for the worst. The Dyatlov group didn't expect tragedy, but you should always prepare for unexpected conditions. Leave an itinerary with someone so someone knows where you are, where you're going to be, and the route you are going. Check the weather forecast. Again, this is the 1950s, so it makes it harder. It's 1959. They don't have extended weather forecasts the same way we do now, where we can get live, up-to-date satellite coverage, but now we do. So there's less of an excuse to be blindsided by extreme weather events. And then identify emergency evacuation routes. So if you're planning on a trip to go somewhere, staying in a cabin or something like that, you need to look at these emergency routes and make sure you have access or the ability to get there. All right. Now we'll be looking at essential gear for winter expeditions. We're looking at navigation tools. Knowing where you are is important to staying alive. You have your map, your compass, and your GPS. Those are the main things we're going to be thinking of. You don't want to rely solely on your GPS because batteries die, especially in extreme cold. They get drained faster, as well as sometimes GPSs can malfunction based on atmospheric conditions we can't control. Something unaffected by that is a map and compass. Compass could be, I guess, especially if there's a UFO overhead throwing off the magnets or whatever. But essentially, a map can't mess with it too bad. So map, compass, GPS. Next up is going to be emergency shelters. We're looking at tents, tarps, bivy sacks, things that protect you and your body and your gear from the wet and the cold and the wind as well. I mean, some of them are really good at cutting down wind, so being able to keep that stuff out is beneficial. Survival kit, this kind of is a catch all term. Your knife, multi tool, whistle, headlamp, extra batteries, all this kind of stuff. It all goes into, camping and stuff like that. Typically, if you're going on an expedition like this, you probably have that stuff already. And then emergency communications, because this is something they didn't have. We're looking at satellite messengers, personal locator beacons, avalanche beacons, signal panels, and mirrors. So signal panels are high vis panels, bright orange, bright blue, bright green, whatever, to signal to overhead helicopters, search and rescue that you are here, this is where you are. Mirrors do the same thing. They catch attention. They go very far. It is like the movies with a mirror. And next, on to food and hydration. Eating high energy, easily digestible foods like nuts, dried fruit, and jerky will keep your body running and keep it fueled so you can continue to work. Having an insulated water bottle will prevent it from freezing and keep hot things hot and cold things cold. And then you need to learn how to melt snow safely for drinking water, because you can still get dehydrated even if it's cold. Because remember, if you can sweat, you can dehydrate. If you don't drink water and you're not sweating, that doesn't mean you're not dehydrated. You still are. You just can't tell until your migraine sets in and you start losing your senses and you start freaking out and thinking that a Yeti is coming down the avalanche after you. Okay, on to part 5. Our lessons learned from the Dyatlov Pass. We're avoiding risky terrain without proper precautions. Again, it's 1959. It's one of those things. They underestimated the mountain, and they were skilled. They were all very skilled hikers, but the problem was they underestimated the mountain and the power of nature. So that was mistake number 1. If an avalanche was responsible, it's a reminder to assess snow conditions before setting camp. Know how to recognize avalanche-prone areas and use proper safety tools like an avalanche beacon or probe. I'll have pictures up of what those look like. If you don't do this thing often, you won't know, and it's okay, but I'll put them up so you know. Staying calm. It's easy to say, easier said than done, right? Stay calm in an emergency. But it does, it's true. Take deep, calming breaths. Try to gather your thoughts and evaluate what is going on, what needs done, and what my priorities of work are. Warmth, shelter, food, water. Whatever that is, if hypothermia is setting in, I need to get warm. If I'm warm, but now I'm getting hungry, I need to eat. If I'm warm and hungry, but I'm getting thirsty, I need to drink. Those things. And then having a signal plan. If something goes wrong, radios, signal flares, mirrors, or a distress beacon can make the difference in rescue efforts, because we want to keep it a rescue operation, not a recovery operation. And then training for the unexpected. The Dyatlov hikers were experienced, but complacency is dangerous. Regular survival training, first aid knowledge, and mental preparation can save your life. Being mentally prepared for these situations, thinking, it's okay to play the what if game sometimes. Don't do it to your detriment, but playing the what if game of, man, what would happen if this scenario, the Dyatlov Pass, I'm there and a small scale late avalanche hits? What do I do? Regardless of what truly happened that night, the Dyatlov Pass incident stands as a chilling reminder of both the power of nature and the mysteries that still elude us. These hikers, experienced, prepared, and determined, were caught off guard by something that they never saw coming. If an avalanche was to blame, it highlights the dangers of underestimating the environment. If foul play was involved, it reinforces the importance of vigilance, even in the most remote locations. And if we entertain the more unsettling theories, it serves as a reminder that there are still forces, both natural and unknown, that can change the course of history in an instant. No matter the cause, one thing is certain: preparation is key. Knowing your environment, having the right gear, and understanding survival fundamentals can mean the difference between life and death in the wilderness. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries, a story that continues to captivate and caution adventurers, survivalists, and storytellers alike. And maybe, just maybe, it holds lessons we have yet to fully understand. All right. Very different video than we are used to. I even have the dark mood lighting on. Just a reminder, If anyone wants to support the channel, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below any stories, books, movies, anything you want me to break down survival lessons from. I'd love to do it. I'm willing to read a book here to be able to provide stuff for you guys. As always, social media, Patreon, all the other links are located in the bio. One last note, I'll have linked up above the Y Files. It's a channel. I love watching them. AJ's hilarious. Hecklefish is awesome. Love those guys a bunch. They always put out really good stuff. Always, it's very family friendly as well. So some of the topics get a little heavy, but for the most part, you can watch it with your kid around. You don't have to worry about him. You know, he's not cursing, he's not being obscene, anything like that. So it's definitely good stuff. I also have linked in the bio, or linked in the bio. Geez, linked underneath in the description for dyatlov That's where I got a lot of this information. I've also heard the story a million times, and I thought there could be some useful stuff gathered from it. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys want more of these. I could definitely turn it into a series. But in the meantime, stay hydrated, stay strapped, and stay blessed, guys. Thank you very much.